Okay, so I think most of you know me already, but for those that don't, my name's John Anderson and I run the EMiR support and development effort. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we've been doing with EMiR and what the plans are for the future. So, again, in the spirit of innovation, we're always trying to move the product forward. We're developing a lot based on customer demand, but we have some plans of our own as well, so we'll fill you in on all of that. So we're going to be moving EMiR to a new language. That will give us options that we don't currently have in terms of user interfaces, interfacing to other software and things. We're going to be upgrading the database, the underlying storage for the system. We're going to produce a new product known as EMiR Enterprise. I'll fill you in on the plans for EMiR Standard, talk you through some of the recently completed development, and we'll look at some of the planned functionality improvements coming up in the short and medium term. So, porting EMiR to a new version of Delphi. Where are we at the moment? So I want to give you a little bit of an idea of the scale of what we're talking about. EMiR Pro itself, we've got the main program file, the EMiR Pro.exe that you connect your shortcut to, but we've also got about 60 other DLLs, which are libraries containing functionality, and a number of other exes, such as labour scheduling, TNA, and that sort of stuff. EMiR itself currently contains the best part of 700,000 lines of code and about 1,800 forms. It's difficult to put an exact figure on that because it changes pretty much daily. Mostly it gets larger, but occasionally we have a lucky strike. We can remove something and then it gets smaller again, which makes me happy. I don't know about everyone else. In total, including all the libraries and other extensions, we think we've got around 4,500 files and forms and about 1.8 million lines of code in the whole project, which makes it a fairly sizable animal to deal with. To give you a bit of context for that, that's about the same volume of code as the control systems for an F-22 fighter jet, and about the same as Windows 3.1, for those who don't remember that far back. Okay, so porting EMiR to a new language, obviously we wouldn't make the change if there weren't some benefits which outweigh the complexities for us. For the end users, you're not going to see a heck of a lot in the first instance because the new version is going to look and feel very much like what you've already got. That might actually be a benefit because it means you're not going to be hunting around for the features that you commonly use and you won't have to relearn things. But one of the things that you will definitely benefit from is improved printer handling, which I think might be a relief to those people who've struggled getting it working in remote desktop, if no one else. We will have better availability of third-party components, which are essentially pre-packaged chunks of functionality created by other people. That means we'll be able to improve things like the look and feel, menus, other options, user interface, that kind of stuff more easily. And probably best of all, it won't be a major update because it will be completely compatible with what we've already got. So when the time comes, it will simply be like another update as you normally have for your EMiR system rather than a complete reinstallation. So actually, from the end user point of view, systems administration, very little will change. So we hope to maintain some stability by doing it that way. There are definitely some benefits for us as well. This means we can start moving towards a 64-bit development environment with the improved performance and functionality that might offer. Again, availability of third-party components. From our point of view, what that means is that we can use more off-the-shelf functionality rather than having to develop everything in-house. Now, there are some benefits to doing it in-house, not least that it means you know how everything works and you can change it more easily, but letting someone else invent some of the wheels means that we can cut out some of the development process and do things a little bit more quickly. That's also particularly going to give us better database connectivity, which is something I'm going to talk about shortly. It also provides us with a good level of community support. So we're using quite an old version of the language at the moment. There aren't that many people who can still solve problems in that. But when you move up to a more current version, there's a good pool of developers, most of whom will have encountered some of the problems that other people encounter. And by pooling resources, you can find solutions to problems much more easily than you can when you're trying to thrash it out on your own. As I mentioned, obviously the new version will give us better connectivity for databases, in particular SQL Server, which is something that I should be talking about again shortly. Finally, it's going to provide us a better platform for moving forward so that we can keep things more up to date in future. Obviously, we're going to be producing procedures and acquiring knowledge as we do that, and that's something that we can learn from and use in the future to ease our passage forward. It's going to be a relatively sizable move, but we've already made some inroads into it. We've already developed a few small bits of functionality using the new system just to prove the concept. So it is already underway, and we hope to complete that by mid-2020. Longer term, we're looking at upgrading the underlying database for EMiR. At the moment, we're currently using a product called the Advantage Database Server. That can run in two modes. You either use the local version, which is free, which is what the majority of customers are using, or you can use the client-server version. The difference being on the local version, all the processing takes place on the client, on the end user's PC. With the client-server version, the database processing happens on the file server, so it's not sending so much data back and forth in terms of when you request something for an inquiry, for example, that can be processed on the server and you just get back the results you need, rather than getting the whole table sent across the network, processed, and then data sent back again. If you don't already use the full ADS product, it's still well worth considering because it does bring about good gains in product performance and stability. So the current plan is to move to a SQL database. We're thinking at the moment of using Microsoft SQL Server, not least because we're currently using SQL Express, which is the free version, as an interface between EMiR and Task Center, and for a few other bits and pieces that we're doing. The benefit of that is that you have a number of options as to how you host it. You can either run SQL Express on your own premises as a standalone thing, as we would do if there weren't any other options. If you already have SQL Server, then we can create databases within that, so you can use your existing infrastructure to host the EMiR data. And there's also the potential of hosting it in the cloud using a service like Azure, so EMiR would be able to connect to any data source as long as it's available via an IP address. This is a pretty big project because it means rewriting or reworking the data access in pretty much every aspect of EMiR. We currently think it's going to take about 26 months to complete, and with that in mind, we're aiming for the end of 2022. Another big benefit for us is that it will give us a chance to completely restructure the EMiR data so we can make things more efficient. As you're probably aware, EMiR has been around for 25 years. It's built up organically from there, and the data, in order to maintain backward compatibility, has never really had a good overhaul. So this will give us a chance to rationalise, and we hope that will bring about some significant performance improvements. So there's a summary of what I've just said. Okay, EMiR Enterprise would be the next step forward from enabling the SQL backend with the ability to host that on the cloud. The idea would be to offer EMiR as a service so that rather than running it on your premises, we'd be able to host the whole thing on a cloud server for you, and you can then rent it and run it remotely while still accessing all the features on your desktop that you normally use. So if you're using Outlook and Excel and things, those would still be accessible either locally or through Office 365 or however you choose to do it. But EMiR itself would no longer actually reside on your hardware. So the new product will be known as EMiR Enterprise. The benefit of it obviously is that you can do away with the upfront cost of having to provide the hardware necessary for EMiR, so we'd hope it would be a cheap solution for you guys. Obviously, we'll be looking at customer feedback before we go too far down that route, but we think it should be a popular solution. As I say, it takes an awful lot of the load out of managing the product. And it will run alongside EMiR Professional. They'll both run on the same data, so you'll be able to mix and match. If you wanted EMiR on your desktop, you can have that, and it will run on the same data as EMiR Enterprise, so it will be fully backward compatible. Okay, in terms of plans for EMiR Standard, EMiR Standard is a completely separate product with its own code base. It has its own libraries and code. Given the scale of the changes that we're making, it won't be possible to port EMiR Standard in the same way that we're doing with EMiR Pro, so that will stay as it is at the moment. We'll continue to support it for the foreseeable future. There won't be so much ongoing development on it, though obviously we'll still be able to meet specific customer requirements, but we would like to think that most customers will move over to Professional over the next few years and get all the benefits that offers. Obviously for us, once we've got a more focused product, all the development effort will go into one thing, and we should see more gains and better functionality as required. Okay, so a quick run through recent development completed. We've done all sorts of work in CRM, Smart Site, Workshop Routing, Dashboards and Task Centre. Gary's going to demonstrate some of the functionality later, and there'll be demos of Smart Site and CRM as well, so you'll get to see some of these features in action. So, in terms of the EMiR professional core functionality, we're constantly developing new functionality. A lot of it's customer driven, so most of you won't see what we've been up to, although obviously if you're a maintenance customer and you have access to the EMiR switches, you would have been offered a lot of the new development as options for your system. We've added over 100 pieces of new functionality on that basis this year. Some of the highlights have been, in particular, the HMRC Making Tax digital VAT return functionality. I've got to give some credit to Mike for that. The whole process of producing that's been surprisingly successful. It's gone through without any major difficulties, mostly due to Mike's efforts in liaising with HMRC to get the whole thing working. So, yeah, thank you, Mike. We've extended the folders functionality to customers, suppliers and purchase orders. The idea of that is that you can create Windows folders on your PC or on your server. Then when you want to make your documents available in EMiR, you can simply drag and drop them into the appropriate folder and they will automatically be detected and shown against the appropriate data type, be that customers, suppliers, purchase orders, jobs. I think that's available for stock parts as well, so you've got a fairly good suite of documentation that you can maintain outside EMiR but still access it from within the system. We've found a new way of emailing from Outlook. We generally use the MAPI option, but if you're using Office, we can now offer an Outlook-specific emailing option. Again, a bit of research by Mike there has found a new way of doing things which has improved life for some users. We're allowing part completion of build jobs, so that kind of ties in with the BOM and PO processing as well. So we've done quite a lot of work to improve the manufacturing functionality. The benefit of the part completion of build jobs is that if you've got a sales job, for example, with a number of builds beneath it, you can now call the build jobs off in batches, and you can deliver and invoice those via the sales job while the rest of the build job's still in progress. In terms of multi-level BOMs and PO processing, we've now developed a system whereby if you've got a main job with a number of build jobs and other jobs beneath it, you can produce all the purchase orders for the whole hierarchy from the main job. So you can just select which items you want to order from the main job and the sub-jobs and do it all in one place. Similarly, we've we've had multi-level BOMs for a while. We've improved a lot of the functionality around that, including tracking price changes, number of hours and things for the BOMs. So on the manufacturing side, that's quite a good improvement. We've added a number of new Excel exports to many of the WIP and revenue reports. We've also added a number of new on-screen inquiries from the finance system and the option to export some of those to Excel. And we've added some new functionality recently, for example, date restrictions on nominal ledger codes and departments and sites so that you can make things available at certain times and not others. We've added the new one-click split job option. So if you've got a sales job with repairs and things associated with it, you can actually create the split job for the repair simply by right-clicking the item. That will generate the whole job, create all the new details for it, and you can open the job and start recording costs against that straight away. And the costs from any split jobs that you produce will immediately be reflected as accumulated costs on the sales job. So again, you can keep track of the whole project just by looking at the main job rather than having to rummage through the entire job hierarchy. And last but not least, we've got the new look and feel for EMiR Professional, which you'll see shortly. Okay, in terms of what we've got planned for the relatively near future, future is a rather variable thing in our world, but this is what's on the table at the moment. We're looking at the reverse VAT charging functionality. I know that affects a few of you who are here today. Obviously, the new rules for the construction industry have actually been pushed back by a year. So, whereas this was top of the agenda a couple of weeks ago, it's still in the pipeline, but not quite so pressing as it was. We're also looking at making some further changes to the existing VAT return functionality to accommodate things like scale charges, so you'll be able to do more of the VAT return easily within EMiR. We're planning to extend the accumulated costs I just mentioned, where you can see all the costs from a job hierarchy against a top level job. We're hoping to include build jobs in that system so that you can keep tabs more easily on your job costs as they progress. We're going to allow multiple assets per job. The idea of that being to to make site work easier, so that instead of having a job for every item on a customer's site, you can say, right, we're going out to the site, we're going to service X number of items, and you can add all the assets from the managed asset database onto a single job. That will then allow you to bring across all the checklists and things. The whole lot will get sent to smart sites. You can fill in all the servicing checklists and things against one job in EMiR. The whole thing's under one roof, and then obviously from your billing point of view, rather than trying to accumulate several different jobs, all your costs and charges there in one place. Also on the subject of smart site and site working, we're looking at adding dynamic risk assessments. That's currently in progress. You may see some of that later. Well, yep, okay, yep, you'll get to see that shortly. TNA system, we're going to allow users to log on to multiple jobs at once. The idea of that being where you've got batch processes, you might be painting a number of motors or washing things or other tasks that can be done to several things at once. The engineer can scan all the job numbers and the operation code. Then when they're finished, the time will be split equally between the jobs, which means that if you spend half an hour doing job work on 6 motors, you don't have to keep logging on and off. You can actually record that all in one go. You do the half hour and that will get split across the jobs afterwards. We're developing mobile-friendly pages for CRM. Obviously, that's going to make life easier for busy salespeople on the move. So rather than having to lug a laptop about, you'll be able to access the core functionality from a mobile phone. And again, last but not least, we're looking at project scheduling enhancements, which is something that came up in the EMiR Development focus group a while ago. We haven't got a complete spec for that as yet, but essentially you're going to be able to set the key dates for a project, monitor those, check your progress, and obviously with the interdependencies built into it, you'll be able to change one date, everything else will filter through, and you can see how you're performing against your targets.
So this is the new look for EMiR. Okay, what you'll notice obviously is now all the buttons at the top have turned orange, so it's keeping track with the theme of what we're doing. And we've had some new graphics. What we've also done is allowed sort of color schemes for sort of paneling like this to be sort of not quite end user configurable, but certainly configurable by an INI file, so you can change the colors more easily. We're still finalizing it. It's virtually there. You can use it. It probably needs a little bit of tidying up before it's released out in the wild. I just want to quickly show you a couple of bits here. So if I just show you what I mean by the change there. Sorry, let's try job number in properly. So as you'll see from here now, the job will look a little bit different on here now. You can see that it's got a flatter look to it, so we don't have so much drop shadow and stuff like that, so you can see the change being made. The colouring has changed slightly as well, so you can ease in the colour between the panels. So you can see here for this repair job how we've changed fonts and things like that as well. So that will all be coming out to you in the very near future. Labour scheduling, John mentioned earlier that we've done some work on calendars and so on. So we've had quite a lot of enhancements. So we've got this thing called the job calendar view in labour scheduling. For those who haven't seen labour scheduling before, this is the job calendar view, so you can see the jobs and when they're due and who's actually assigned to them. You can change the labour simply by clicking here and choosing a new person. When you've got someone scheduled as a planned operation, you can double-click a cell and you can see who's supposed to be on that, and then you can simply allocate that engineer like so, and then specify the amount of time you want them to use on that job. So that's quite easy, and it gets to change things like so. What is new in here, for those people who are familiar with labour scheduling, is that you now have this unscheduled bit on the job calendar view. So you can see all engineers that haven't been used at all today, which makes life a little bit easier when it comes to finding an engineer that you need if you want to use it via the job calendar view. So obviously you've also got in the middle there all the people that are on non-productive time day and training, and they obviously come out of the unscheduled list because they're no longer available. Just finally, I want to just quickly show you this accumulated cost, because I think for the assembly manufacture type people in the room, it will be quite an important addition. If I open this job here, which Christina created for me earlier. Thanks, Christina. What you've got here is the way it will work is if you're doing a build, obviously, you create a sales job to start with, and then you build the assemblies underneath, and as you build and complete them, you can basically then dispatch them. And as mentioned earlier, you can do part complete. What we've got here, actually, is we've got the ability to do split jobs now as well as build, which is what John mentioned. And the one in orange here, as it says here, has a sub-job, but that means that sub-job's still open, whereas this top one, which has a sub-job, has now been finished, hence it's turned to the used colour here, used item. But what is important and what's new is that what you see here is you get to see a breakdown of the sub-job labour and materials and what the total accumulated costs of all the sub-jobs are. So by looking at the very top level, you can see the costs of everything below it all in that top level job, which I think makes a huge amount of difference for people. It gives you much better visibility. And alongside that, you've basically got active jobs with accumulated costs here. So if I just backdate this fraction. What you're seeing here for this job that we've got is you can see again, you can see basically the labour and material cost element. As this is a sales job, normally all the costs would be materials because it's a sales job, so you're building items. But this actually breaks it down for you so you can see the labour and the material all accumulated together from the sub-jobs and what's actual cost to date and what's still committed, which means you've had a purchase order raised but haven't had an invoice for it yet. So you get a much greater breakdown of the costs that are in the sub-jobs and how they actually correspond to the main job. So to bring that into build jobs isn't a huge job, but we haven't done it yet. We've developed it actually for split jobs at the moment, but that's what we're looking to do, as John mentioned, in the near future, and then that'll be rolled out to you. And you'll get these additional inquiries. You get an invoiced accumulated cost and an active accumulated cost, which are going to be ideal for managing your build projects. Okay, so if we go back here, actually, come out of here. Okay. So those are the three things I've just shown you. So again, first one's basically finished, the second one's already been out for a while, and the third one we're going to release once we've updated it for build jobs as well. The process for development requests, briefly, I mean, we get requests all the time to change EMiR. And what we've always been very keen to do is to do what you want and make the change that you require and put it into your system. But what that has caught us out, though, in the past, because we've actually developed something for one company based on what they wanted without actually making sure it was a full and proper solution that other people could use. So what we're doing now is when we get a request that we think falls into that category, we're actually having a team review at our end to ensure that the modification will fit into the software properly, and that if it is branched out to other users, it will be a full and proper solution that you can all use. Obviously, some specific requests might just bypass that, but they won't be released to the general community. But by and large, most of the development we'll do will be done as a result of having a meeting and actually deciding on the functionality of each option. Okay. Just quickly, thanks to Swipe and Tap, we actually use Trello boards. So what will happen from now on as well is we have Trello boards for each product. And if you have an idea of a change you want to make, we'll probably be able to give you direct access. But certainly, if you email an idea in, we'll pop it onto a Trello board, and then we can discuss it during our EMiR Development focus group meetings. So this is where you can get involved. Okay. So in the past, we've had EMiR Development focus group days, where a selection of customers have come in and discussed a variety of areas of EMiR and discussed improvements and changes that we think would make sense. And then we've tried to get a consensus of opinion as to what good ideas are, and then from there we've actually gone ahead and tried and develop the solution. They've been very effective at generating ideas, but not as effective to actually implement the ideas. And the reason for that is it's quite hard to get consensus amongst a limited group of people. The group's actually probably been too small, although they've been very advanced users. There aren't enough people generally to get consensus, and one person might want something somebody else doesn't, and that kind of thing. So hard to administrate from our point of view and very time consuming, and generally the scope of the meetings has been too large. We try to cover too much in one day, and we get bogged down in the detail kind of thing. And also you get a group of people into a room. Some people might have smart site, some people might not. So they're not interested in discussing what's changing in smart site, but they might have CRM, they might not, and so on. So what we're going to do going forward, as we're trying to improve all the time, we're going to keep it much simpler. What we're going to do now is for all the EMiR community, all you customers out there, we're going to have basically module and extension-based development focus groups. So if you want to contribute to the smart site one, or the CRM one, or the accounting one, whatever you want to do, you can. We're going to do meetings online, and we're going to try and typically cover them in an hour. So everyone on those sessions will have a chance to discuss the solutions and get a consensus to what we think are the best ideas going forward. we'll try and get those ideas from you in advance. So from now on, because we've got Trello and we've got a way and means of collecting those ideas, if you send them in, they'll be popped on the Trello board for discussion. So we constantly add those on for you. One more thing before I finish is the EMiR Developer Program. You'll see later in the Tile Centre discussions that there are quite a few people in the EMiR community that actually create their own dashboards, create their own reports, and want to do more with the EMiR data directly. So what we're doing, we've come up with the EMiR Developer Program. It's brand new. We're still in the final stages of finalising everything, but we'll be coming back to those people that are interested in more details. And essentially, it's going to be for those users that want to create their own dashboards or reports. And those users obviously require a greater level of EMiR knowledge. They don't need to know how to use EMiR. They need to know where the EMiR data is stored and how they can get at it, and basically what rules apply as to how things are stored, what methods are used. So what we plan to do is we plan to give you, those people on the developer program, access to a data dictionary. So that will basically allow you to see the key fields and tables for each area of the system. We'll provide additional documentation on how and why that data is stored, and we'll provide additional support to you to answer specific queries to support your end user development. We're also, very importantly, going to provide additional structured training days to cover different parts of the system and how EMiR stores and processes data. Because it's not just a case of understanding what you want to do, it's understanding how EMiR does it behind the scenes. EMiR might present it in a very easy format, but the data underneath it might be quite complex. So we need to train you in how to do that. So what it will cost. We haven't come up with a figure yet, but what we'll have, there will be a separate fee for a developer program. There'll be an initial joining fee, and then there'll be a credit-based fee by where, as you use support, we'll basically take some of your time and put it against the fee that you've already paid, essentially. Training day fees will also be applicable, and anyone who wants to join the EMiR Developer Program will have to attend those training days so that you have that level of knowledge before we can continue to support you. This will be rolled out depending on the level of interest, and I say we'll write to all those who are interested with a full fee structure. We just need to gather the scope of how many people actually want to do that. I say there are quite a few companies doing it and doing it very actively, but some other companies might want to do that as well.